what we'll demonstrate here quickly, we'll show you an ad hoc workflow and the approve or reject comments, the workflow review page and the configuration options, and the workflow history. A piece of content that I've been working with, and this is a PowerPoint presentation which shows the workflow history. And I will check this out. And delete it in a moment. Okay. So there's the example. And then I'm going to check this right back in, assuming I took a little while to make my changes. It's a simple profile with some basic data on it. And it's basically just a document I'm checking, in this case a PowerPoint. But the workflow is basically a 3-step ad hoc workflow. This workflow has been configured so that it will work with one or more of the values being entered, and some can be skipped. So in this example, I have one step where 2 people can approve it on the first step, and the third step is 1 person who approves it. They're actually different individuals. Well, we'll pick the document off the system, check it back in, and then our system is using a product called Duplicate File Checker, which is validating that I'm not duplicating too much of what I'm checking into my environment, and then it's off and running. So I can then flip over to my active workflows, and this active workflow is the one called Ad Hoc, and it shows me that my item is in GenWW and going through the conversion process, and it is in the first workflow step. In this case, I am not the approver of that item. But if I flip over to my other user, I can see that under my workflow assignments, I will see values from my workflow queue. And here's where we'll start seeing features of workflow solution step popping up in these sortable columns, as well as filtering to look for items in this column. In case I have a long list of items in my workflow, I can configure different values to add to my display. Simply dragging and dropping and saving, and it will add a new column to my workflow display. And I can deal with my pagination here, and I can clear my filters if I had any of those turned on. So it's a very simple, intuitive interface for the casual user to work with. In this first step of workflow, if I go to the workflow review frame, I will see the document that was converted over to my right, like I normally do out of the box. Over on the left is my workflow review pane, and there's the instructions. So workflow solution set allows me to define the set of instructions for this step in the workflow. I can also enable or disable these various links on this left side. So as the first step of the workflow approval, as this individual, I can approve, reject, check it out, and eventually check it back in and make changes. I can also see the WebView native and some other links. In this case, I'm going to simply approve it. And I have 480 characters remaining in space to make this approval commentary. And then it will move automatically to the next step of the defined workflow configuration I have that's out of the box. In this case, it goes to the third step. I cannot do anything on this as this user, but if I flip back to my other user, it will show up in my workflow queue, and it is the third step, and I have a different set of columns displayed, if you'll notice, than that other user did in my other browser. I can also look at my workflow info, which is out of the box here. We do not disturb any of that. And I can also approve or reject in this case and provide comments. I'm going to approve this through. And it is out of the workflow queue and has now been released. And I can go to the content info page, and workflow solution set allows me to show the workflow history here for the most recent, or for the, the current revision I am looking at. I can click over to view the history, or I can flip over to the history from here. And if I switch to the previous revision, I will see revision 5. And I can flip over to the full list of all revisions that went through the process and all the steps in the workflow at the time, all the individuals who were on the approval steps, and any messages in that approval step.